This Alienware gaming PC has a failed motherboard. After doing a bunch of testing where we were able to see that the system was getting stuck on the Alienware logo on every single startup, we were able to determine after testing all the other components that we have a bad system board. With that said, after talking with the customer about the bad system board, we went ahead and decided that it was best to go ahead and figure out if we were either going to replace it or kind of move into a new form factor, as that way they would have more options for upgradability down the road, because this case is very limiting not only in its cooling capacity, but also what you can actually fit inside of this, including like the GPU. With that said, we decided that we're going to go ahead and move over to a full ATX form factor. This way we can go ahead and work with better components for the long term and give them some room to upgrade in the future. So let's go ahead and run over what we decided to use. When it came to selecting the components that we'd be using to go ahead and move all the good hardware out of this Alienware desktop over to a new case, we were really focusing on two things: upgradability and price. We wanted to go ahead and make sure that this was a good value for the customer, and they had plenty of rooms to go ahead and upgrade in the future, because this is really the main point of getting away from proprietary form factors like the Alienware gaming PC over to a standardized ATX case. Speaking of the case, we're going to be using one of my favorite cases on the market. This is the Fractal Pop Air, and it's one of my favorite cases. Not only does it have great cooling, it comes in at a great price and has plenty of room for expandability in the future with a bunch of full-size support. So, with that said, we also need a new motherboard. So, the Gigabyte B550 UDAC was our choice. The reason for this, I've used this board a number of times, had great luck with it. In addition to this, this board has onboard Wi-Fi, which the customer needed, and it came in at a great price. So, that's why we selected this board. We also need to go ahead and change our cooler because of the proprietary cooler and the Alienware gaming PC. So we're going to be using this Deepcool AG400BK. This is going to be a great cooler and perfectly adequate for the 3600 that's in the system. And then the last thing that we need, because we can't carry over the old power supply, we need a new power supply. So we went ahead and went with the EVGA 700GD. The reason for this, it was a great deal, and this gives the customer plenty of room to upgrade their GPU down the road if they ever want to. So that's why we went ahead and selected this model. With that said, let's go ahead and extract all the good components out of this Alienware gaming PC and move them over to the new build. To get started transferring the components over, the first thing we need to do is pop off the side panel by pulling the release on the back of the machine, followed by unlocking and swinging out the power supply unit. From there, we can go ahead and unplug and pull out the customer's GPU, and then pull out the 2 sticks of DDR4. With that now complete, we need to extract 2 more things. First, the M.2 drive, which just requires 1 screw to be removed, and then from there we can go ahead and remove the all-in-one liquid cooler pump block, and with that now out of the way, we can take some isopropyl alcohol and a shop towel to clean off the old thermal paste off the CPU. With that now cleaned off, the CPU retention lever can now be lifted up, and the CPU can now be removed. Now let's go ahead and move over to the new motherboard so we can get this system prepped. As always, I like to work on the motherboard box while prepping the motherboard, as it gives you a great surface to work on. With the motherboard now ready, we can go ahead and install the CPU by lifting up the retention arm and then slotting it into place. Now for the RAM, we have 2 sticks, so we're going to be putting that in slots 2 and 4 as recommended by the motherboard manual. The M.2 drive is also pretty easy to install at this point, as it just requires us to slot it into place, and then we can lower it down and use the included screw to hold it in place. So with the motherboard pretty much prepped, because we're going to be using an air cooler, let's go ahead and get that installed now, as it will be easier to mount before we put it in the case. To do this, we first need to unscrew the stock mounting hardware, and then from there we can go ahead and get that swapped out with Deepcool's included hardware. From there, after putting some thermal paste on the CPU, we can go ahead and get that cooler installed by screwing it into place and then plugging in our ARGB fan header. With the motherboard now fully prepped, let's go ahead and get that installed in the case. Starting off by first making sure we have the I/O shield ready to go, and then we can lower the board into place and screw it down. We can also at this point do something I like to call pre-wiring, which is where I basically take care of the USB 3.0, HD audio, and other front panel connectors just so they're out of the way from all the other cables we have to run. With that now good, let's go ahead and slide in our EVGA power supply into the bottom basement and then run the corresponding cables to their required locations to get everything plugged into the motherboard, including the 24-pin and 8-pin cables. With that now plugged in, we can now install our GPU, get that screwed into place, and then get that plugged into power. With just a little bit of cable management work, this system is now good to go, and I'm super happy how everything turned out. The kind of all black aesthetic just looks really simple and clean in this system, and I'm just really happy how all that kind of came together. And this system really gave us a great option for the customer, as now they were able to take a system that had very limited upgradability to a form factor that can be upgraded for generations to come. If they want to change their motherboard, they can, because it's a standard ATX form factor. If they want to change their GPU, they not only have an adequate power supply, but have plenty of room in their case to even even do triple fan designs. With that said, I'm super happy with how everything turned out, and we can now get this system back to the customer. Before we go, if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and check out this video here where we built an all-white gaming PC, and it was one of my favorite builds that we've ever done. So go ahead and check that out, and we'll see you guys in the next video.